Hello. How are you? Hi. Hi, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Hello. Hello. My cousin's on here. That's great. Hello, hello. Hi. I'm going to wave to people. So, welcome, everybody. Thanks for spending your Thursday afternoon with me. Or I guess evening, right? But the sun's still out. So I am just waiting for Miss Erica Crawford to join. For those of you who don't know, Erica Crawford is the founder of Loveblock wines. Loveblock is a really exciting label based out of New Zealand. And what I really like about the Loveblock wine line is that they are sustainable. So they're like certified New Zealand sustainable. They are mostly biodynamic. They are mostly organic as well as vegan friendly. So if you have any vegan friends, these wines, a lot of them are vegan friendly. Hello. Hello, Nicole. How are you? Hi. So I guess I'll just start while we're waiting. So this is pretty much their most popular wine. Oh, there is Miss Erica Crawford. Yay! So I'll let her talk about the wines, but this is one of their most popular. It's one of my favorite, and it's just like their classic Sauvignon Blanc. It's so yummy. All right, let's see her. Okay. There we go. Awesome. Okay. Waiting for the connection. Hello.
Hi. Oh,
How are you, Erica?
Oh, how's that? I just put my beautiful plant in another spot and I put it in the wrong spot. So anyway, you can see it there behind me.
I think it looks beautiful. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Erica. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a real pleasure. I mean, it's 10:30 in the morning here, and I have to say, I'm just about ready for a glass of Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh, perfect. I have my glass here too.
Funny that.
Yeah. So,
I don't know how you, it's pretty weird life at the moment, isn't it? And it seems like you guys are doing it pretty tough in the US. I hope everybody's okay.
Oh, yeah, no, we're all hanging in there. You know, Governor Cuomo has this saying, New York strong. So I think everyone is doing a great job. You know, everyone's doing what they're supposed to do for the most part.
Yeah.
And you know what? We'll just get through it. That's it.
We will, and hopefully we'll come out a better world on the other side, because, you know, here's the thing that I think also happening here. We've just had to pick the grapes, right, for the 2020 vintage. And the grapes were absolutely spectacular in quality, but the conditions in which we had to pick were absolutely horrendous, because we've got a rule book about this big, about what you can and cannot do. So, you know, that was quite tricky doing it that way, and managing people in the winery, and you've got to manage it through to their homes, what they call the bubble. So, for instance, you can't have two people from different wineries sharing the same flat, or one person being a doctor and the other person being a winery person. So it's called essential businesses. So it's been quite a bit of juggling, getting people accommodated, and so everything could happen. But we threw that, and here's the irony of life. You know, Mother Nature dished up the most spectacular vintage. The grapes are so gorgeous, yet the most difficult circumstance to pick it in. And I think maybe it's just telling us who's the boss here, because we've been messing around with for so long. And geez, we've abused her a little bit, haven't we?
Right, right.
Maybe it's just her way of telling who's the boss.
Right. So let me get this straight. When you're picking, you're having to observe social distancing while picking.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's so interesting. That must have been extremely well orchestrated and thought out, and that to me is amazing.
Yeah. So we've had to revert to more machine harvesting this year, just to
Okay.
keep it safe, for the workers. But by and large, it works really well for Sauvignon Blanc machine harvesting. So yeah, we will have a little bit less hand picked this year, but you know, it's just it's a special vintage, isn't it?
Definitely. 2020 is a vintage I don't think most wine lovers are going to forget.
No, but I mean, we'll never forget this year in our entire lives, will we?
No,
Anyway,
definitely not. Definitely not. So, I feel like a lot of the people that have tuned in are at least familiar with Loveblock wines, but just in case they aren't, why don't you just fill them in on a little bit of a backstory about this wonderful wine label?
okay, so you know, just by way of context and background, we made King Crawford wines, and then we sold that and left in 2008. And then we served a non-compete period, during which time we started developing these vineyards. And Loveblock really is what we want to do. So whereas before we bought grapes from other people, made it at someone else's place, so effectively only made a brand and juice, you know. So now we own all the vineyards. Our focus is very firmly on organic farming and really deep sustainability, because it's just you know, not often in life that you get the opportunity to really live your values. And for me, my journey to organics has come probably about 15 years, you know. And so by the time we got to this, it was just the next logical step. So it's not always easy. It's much easier just and cheaper to spray your out and, you know, spray fungicides on, but that's not what we're about. Two things for me. It's about the soil, because if the soil is not in balance and healthy, nothing that grows out of it is going to be good and healthy. So you always have got to enhance it with herbicides, with pesticides, etc. So we moved away from that for the most part, and where we're still not organic, we're moving towards it. So it's difficult. And then the other thing is purely health reasons. And I think with organics, it's more what you don't get than what you get. So you know that you don't get pesticides, you know that you don't get herbicides. So because the whole entire farm is a system, you know, it's not just growing grapes. We also have like 200 head of cattle, and they have a specific job to do. And so they eat grass between the rows, but they also eat some of the, you know, most of the farm is actually grazing paddocks. So it's just a balance that you've got to keep. I'm really big on biodiversity, because what biodiversity does is to introduce different organisms, because it's a little bit like this COVID thing, you know, if something comes and you get desensitized, or that's not quite the right word. If you only
Oh,
if we only have
okay.
Sauvignon Blanc planted in Marlborough and no biodiversity and have organisms in the soil, then you know, and there's a fungus or a virus coming in, the whole crop could be wiped out for the whole of New Zealand or the whole of Marlborough. So if you have biodiversity, it makes you stronger because it brings in different components. And what we're seeing now after 10 years of organics is that the wine actually goes off on its own wild yeast. So we don't inoculate the wine anymore. So it's a whole long process. We also use sheep. We also make our own compost, so that everything off the farm goes back onto the farm. We have a big vegetable garden so that everybody who works on the farm, so whether you read the electricity or you pick grapes or you prune, you can go to the vegetable garden and pick some veggies for supper.
Yeah.
So I'm fully into that permaculture thing. So it's more than just making wine and making profit. It's a lifestyle. And I think, you know, it's earth care in my vision.
Right. Absolutely. And that is like so important for longevity. I mean, if you want to continue making wine for years to come, you have to take care of the land that you're cultivating and you are making wine with. For those of you who don't know, Erica is a fan of biodynamics. We did talk about that when we met in New York City last month. And I asked her, I was like, so do you go as far as to plant the horn in the soil? And Erica goes, sometimes yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're
I
not.
thought that was the coolest answer ever.
Yeah. So we employ some of the I'm just going to move myself down a little bit here.
Yeah.
So you don't see my double chin. We're employing some of the biodynamic preparations, and there are lots of things. So sometimes the vine needs something, and instead of spraying something, you can use it. You can make one of these teas. So, for instance, it happens in spring and autumn. So put manure in a cow horn and bury it for 6 months, and then what comes out of there is the most concentrated compost. And then you dilute that like a tea, and then you can spray it either on the soil or on the vine.
That is so interesting. I think that is the coolest thing.
One of the preparations, you use dandelion flowers, and so there's a whole, I think there's about 6 of them. So we're moving in that direction. So when we pick the grapes, we focus on picking on a fruit day. So in biodynamics, you have fruit days, root days, leaf days, and fruit, flower, root, leaf.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So for instance,
there's also an app for that. Do you have the When Wine app?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that app too.
So for instance, if you make your little garden or your patio or something and you want to plant carrots, you look on the calendar and you see it's best to plant it on a root day. And if you want to plant something like basil or what do you call coriander?
We call it coriander.
Yeah. Then because it grows up, you could try and go, and it's leafy, you'd go with a leaf day. So we're getting ourselves more immersed in that sort of stuff as well. There's still a lot of science in all these things, but we're moving more and more and more away from additives and manipulation of the wine.
Yeah, that's so important. It's so hard to do, especially with this unpredictable weather that we've been having on a global scale. We have a question from the audience that just came in. Balsam Fur asks, what are your thoughts on enjoying wines on root days?
You know how sometimes you have a wine and it's absolutely smashing. It just smashes. It smashes. And other times it's not the same. So I mean, there are loads of variables. But when we go on these trips and you taste the same wine 6 times a day, 5 days a week, you really get to know how because it's so intense. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and people like the wine really, really cold. And it was the very first tasting in the morning, so like 9 o'clock. And whoa, that's going to be hard. But the wines were just out of the gate, they were just absolutely beautiful. And it was a fruit day. So root day, it doesn't always work. It depends on your palate too. But root days do tend to be a little bit less floral and less fruity.
Right. That's so true. Do you want to talk about the current releases? So I have in my little paws currently the 2019 Sauvignon Blanc. And then I also have the Pinot Noir. We were not able to get the Pinot Gris.
That's okay. So can we just talk through these two then?
Yeah.
So obviously Sauvignon Blanc is, I'm just going to chop mine up here.
Of course. Take it up. Oh, by the way, people, anytime someone says health, like healthy, I'll just type it. You may feel free to take a sip, but you may feel free to take a sip anytime you like, because, this is a virtual happy hour.
So Sauvignon Blanc is obviously Marlborough's signature and New Zealand's signature. It's what it's known for. And, we've been in the US since 1997. We were very young when we took King Crawford there, and no one had known it there. And the style is, because of the grapes, it's really big and it's zippy and it's boisterous and it jumps out of the glass. With Loveblock, you'll see some different flavors. So, of course, it's still got the herbaceous and some of the green flavors, but you'll see more. peach, you'll see more pineapple, and you'll perhaps see some orange rind in here. So moving away from the big green flavors and allowing the fruit flavors to show a little bit more. And we can do that by manipulating the vine in the vineyard, or not manipulating it actually, and by doing less in the winery. So it's basically like, not putting an athlete on steroids. Right. So you'll still see it Sauvignon Blanc because it's still got those signature flavors, but then you get, for me, it's this lovely pineapple and basil on the mouth, on the nose, and peach.
I can totally see that basil now that you mentioned it. And I definitely get the stone fruit flavors. Sometimes I can find New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs, like, not your label, obviously, but like some other ones, like super, super grassy, like overwhelmingly grassy. But this is not like this. I find this, like, the flavor profile much more like balanced and enjoyable. And I mean, I could drink this on its own, or I could drink it with like more like healthy salads, healthy salads, or, just light, refreshing meals.
I think that you're very right about the greenness, and we're deliberately moving away from that. And it does require a lot more hands on the grapevines. So, you've got to expose the grapes a little bit more to sunshine and carefully pick the leaves away from it. You can't just take machinery and go over it. So there's certainly a lot more of a hand component in this wine. And I think also because the wine has about half the sulfur that it usually has, and is softer as well. So with sulfur, it really grabs the flavor and then hooks it in. And that's the part of the function of preservative, right? Here you haven't got that much sulfur, and so the wine is softer. But the greenness purely comes from manipulation in the vineyard, and not manipulating it in the winery. So we're more hands off in the winery, and in the vineyard there's a lot more. Instead of, a lot of these things are incredibly mechanized because we have big labor problems here. We just don't have labor. So, it's a lot of love and care and sweat and tears going into this. And I hope you can taste, that it is layered with love and friendship and hope. And it's comes across the ocean, doesn't it? Yeah.
I totally taste love, Erica. These wines have a lot of love in them, for sure. We have a few questions from the audience. Okay. One person made a statement and they want you to comment on it. And this is Cobb anthocyanin. Would you share? The wine is alive when you open the bottle. So does he think, he wants you to comment on the wine is alive when you open the bottle? I guess, like, do you disagree?
No, I do agree, because you'll see that the wine changes as you, in the glass, if you have it open for 20 minutes, the wine changes from the top of the bottle to the bottom of the bottle. And if you look at the other wine that we have here, this Loveblock orange, you'll really see it there, because there is no sulfur in that, and the flavors really just flow naturally. So I think the wine,
That's amazing. Now tell people, I mean, while we're on the topic of the Loveblock orange, which is like hands down my most favorite, what did you use to help kind of preserve it that most people are not using? Because it's very interesting.
So we know that there's a guy here in New Zealand, he makes fruit wine, and he uses green tea. You know, that we know that it's got real good antioxidant characters. And we thought we'd try it, and so got it. It is a registered wine additive. So every time the wine is exposed to oxygen, so when you pick it, when you take it to the press, when you take it from press to barrel or to tank, every time the wine is moved, you have to add some of this tea. And it was real. We've made 2 batches and over 2 vintages, and I think we've sort of nailed the formula now. And what we see is it does really preserve. It does preserve. It doesn't oxidize, so it really is an antioxidant. But what we do see is that the flavor expression is still Sauvignon, but it is quite different. It's much more Verbena-like, and the flavors flow more freely. So you get more saffron in there, and you get orange rind, and you get and you still, of course, you still get some of the peach, but the wine just really takes a much more liberal journey on the flavors.
Right. Especially that Loveblock 2018. The 2018 is a fun one. It definitely is. I mean, it's like, it's totally like, it's unlike any New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that I've ever had. And that's what makes it so fun.
I think it's quite different, you know, and I think that you taste totally natural wine. So natural wine is not, no additives, it's not fine, it's not filtered, but it's got, Sauvignon Blanc's got that same verbena-like flavor that you get so much on these natural / green tea wines that we see in that one. So hopefully we'll bring that to the US with current conditions, probably spring next year.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, one other question here. Erica, Loveblock Sauvignon Blanc is so silky on the palate, which is so unique. Why do you think that is?
Okay, so there's two things that we do. So 20% of the wine goes into old oak. So we call it neutral oak, which means it just gives it a different component in there. It cuts away some of the hardness of the acid. Of course, New Zealand's a cool climate. You know, it doesn't really get warm here like it does in California, and it does in New York, even in summer, you know. So we have really high acid levels. So it just takes away from that, and it puts a different creamy layer in there. And then another 25% of the wine goes through malolactic fermentation. So that means that essentially you change it from green apple acid or green apple to yogurt flavors.
Right.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And so that's how we get some of the mouthfeel. But I also think it's because of the lower sulfur and a little bit more sun on the grapes than is the tradition in New Zealand to make Sauvignon Blanc.
That's awesome. Sorry, we got a little sidetracked. Back to our 2019.
Oh, you know what?
I just didn't want the questions to like get away from me as like the comments kept rolling.
So what was the question? Sorry, Amanda.
So, okay, sorry. So we were talking about our 2019 New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. Do you want to take us through maybe the harvest and like the growing conditions of 2019?
Yeah, so that was a pretty good year. You know, in 2017 and 2018 were very challenging for us. We had cyclones and we had a lot of rain. So the winemaking conditions were pretty difficult. But 19 came along and it was just, everything was just working well. And so it was dry. You know, the grapes were picked at about 21, 22 bricks. And it was just one of those perfect vintages where, you know, we get big fluctuation between daytime and nighttime. All of that happened. But I do see the climate changing for sure. It's definitely changed in the last 10 years. Our vintages are a lot earlier now. Our vintages are, you know, it's a lot warmer at night. 20 years ago, this time of the year, it was cold in Marlborough, you know, like, it's not anymore. It's not that, so things are changing, and with that come associated problems such as powdery mildew. Is a pest that is a fungus that we really struggle with in the vineyard. So yeah, the climate's changing and it brings good, bad, and ugly with it.
Right, totally. I mean, it's changing everywhere. What type of soil is on your Loveblock?
So it's basically aged alluvial. So it ranges from probably 15 inches to 2 feet of silt over stone. So it means it's pretty free draining and ideal to curb the vigor of Sauvignon Blanc, giving you a little bit more of that intensity of flavor. Yeah.
That is great. And then if you could like briefly just touch on the viticulture practices for the Sauvignon Blanc.
So as I said, I mean, for New Zealand, labor is a big problem. So we've had to mechanize to a great extent, though we try and have as many hands on vines as possible. So essentially, because the 50% of the vineyards are organic. Where they're not organic, we're on our way. The grapes get a bit more exposure to sun, so we leaf pluck a bit more. Our crops are a bit lower because we can manage that ourselves. So we're in a state proposition. We have our own staff doing most of everything. We use gangs to do the pruning and things like lifting the wires so that the shoots can grow up between them. Mm-hmm. But largely, in Marlborough, it depends. You know, if you want the style, you shade the grape bunches more, and you do that by topping the top. You know what it's like when you prune a tree or you cut your basil. Right. If you cut the top off, you get more shoots growing out the side. So it's exactly to make the traditional style. You cut the top, and then these side laterals grow and shade the grapes, and that's also, you know, you get more green flavors out of that. We tend not to do that so much, so really trying to get some sunshine onto the bunches. So that's really the thing, and you know, we went through the wine. 20% oak and 25% Malek.
That's interesting. So very interesting. All right, so let's move on to the other baby, which I was looking on the website before we popped on here, and the vineyard plot for this wine, your Pinot Noir, has a very interesting story on how it got its name. It's actually kind of sad about the poor gentleman. But yeah, so this is, everyone, her Pinot Noir. It's from a region called Central Otago. Central Otago isn't, so you have Marlborough, and then like Central Otago is like more in the center of New Zealand. So Erica, do you want to talk a little bit about the Pinot Noir?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little. This was a vacant plot of land that we bought in 2008 with Constellation's money after Kim Crawford. Thank you very much. So the area there is like planting grapes in Aspen. You know, it's at elevation. It's got alpine ranges. It's got lakes, and it's really quite spectacular. But around the 1850s, people went there to pan for gold, just like they did in Colorado. And if you have an opportunity to go, have a look. You know, they literally just dug holes in the side of the earth where they were digging, and then lived there. So it was really, really primitive. And a young man from somewhere, people came from all over the world, and this young man died. And a farmer found on his big sheep station, and of course he didn't have any identification. There were no iPhones, no dog tags or anything. This was about 1850 or so. So he just dug a grave and put a cross on and called it someone's darling. And we thought it was really sweet, and we thought it was on spot, but it's not. It's a little bit further away, but it's still a good story, isn't it?
Definitely. Because I read that and I'm just like, oh wow, that's a pretty interesting story there. We have to talk about that.
Yeah, it's very sweet. I mean, but you know, New Zealand's a small country, so there's more people just living in Manhattan than there are in all of New Zealand. So there are only 5 million of us.
Right.
So people are quite connected, because, you know, and you'll find people are quite connected because it's so remote. Yeah. And so you get that loveliness of people sharing ideas, and winemakers and grape growers sharing knowledge. So we have quite a lot of that going on. And that little story.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. Okay, so let's talk about the soil for your somebody's darling plot area.
Yeah. So there the soil is quite limestoney, so and schist, so sort of more traditional Pinot Noir type soil. And where this little vineyard is one of the warmer areas of Central Otago, because like Colorado and like Aspen, it's really hot in winter, and and really cold and really hot in summer and really cold in winter. Okay, so and it's almost semi-desert, so you get that sort of really Pinot-centric soils there. And we've only been planting Pinot Noir there, I think, for probably the last 20 years. So we've come a long way in that time. So our vineyard is in an area called Bendigo. Our closest town is, if you Google that, it's called Cromwell. And Cromwell's claim to fame is it's got this massive installation of fruit. So most of New Zealand's stone fruit, apricots, cherries, etc., used to come from there. So that was their claim to fame. So if you Google that, you'll see this big fruit installation. And so the fruit do tend to be a little bit more forward. And here you'll see some lovely rich plummy cherry-like flavors. And then just like a cigar box. With this wine, we don't use a lot of oak. So 50% of the wine goes on oak, and then 50% of the wine stays on stainless steel. Am I sounding weirdly on the sound there, guys, or is the sound good?
There is a few moments where you do break up a little bit, but I would say on a general whole, you sound fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I really do like the Pinot Noir. I mean, I know New Zealand's like most prominent grape for export is Sauvignon Blanc, and it does very well. But this Pinot Noir is like so delicious. Like I get like earthy notes, like forest floor, a little bit of mushroom. I get those like red fruits. I mean, this wine is delicious.
So I'll tell you another little story. So in here goes 5 clones, and the one clone is a New Zealand heritage clone. And the story behind that is an old guy brought it in his suitcase before biosecurity was so strong, and it got confiscated at customs. You know, the sticks, the grapes, the plants. And the customs agent's name was Malcolm Abel. So he looked at things and he thought that he was going to plant it because a friend of his owned a nursery. So he, with his mate, he planted it in the nursery and he cultivated it. A year later, Mr. Malcolm Abel passed away, but the vines were there. Those little plants were then vines, and they were, you know, the one Utarangi winemaker, Clive Payton, he was the first and only one who worked with Mr. Malcolm Abel, but the first one to use it. So the clone in the Abel clone is now sort of the New Zealand clone. It is something from France somewhere, but that tends to give you a little bit more structure of wine. Otherwise, it can be quite florally, but it is, and you get the tobacco, and you see the color is light too, because Pinot Noir really is light. It's not deep purple. It's not a deep purple wine. If you hold it against white, you'll see it's got a beautiful crimson color. Yeah, and you can, Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc for me, speaking of food, because you got to know, I love food. So,
yes. And we had a great time at Claw Daddy. I mean, we all ate like so much. Chelsea was there. Huh?
So Sauvignon Blanc for me and Pinot Noir are the two most versatile wines, because Sauvignon Blanc, you know, often you go and you have lunch and you have salad and a glass of wine, and what does the lettuce leaves do to the wine? It makes it bitter. But if you have it with Sauvignon Blanc, it doesn't. So for me, Sauvignon Blanc is really the only thing you can have with salad. And you can have it with everything from salad through to creamy pasta dishes and roast chicken and beyond. And Pinot Noir you can have from, you know, everything from white fish through to salmon, through to lamb, through to beef, through everything. So it's these two wines are incredibly versatile, and they really adjust to the food. So the goal really is to lift the food up and make the food look good. And if the food is right, it makes them look good.
Right. Definitely. I mean, I think the whole range that you have exported to the United States that I've at least tried, the Pinot Gris, the Pinot Noir, and the Sauvignon Blanc are very good food wines. I think they go amazing with a lot of food. And I also think they go amazing on their own.
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, I think I just want to give a punt to Pinot Gris here. So Pinot Gris is basically it's the same grape as Pinot Grigio. It's just picked a little bit riper, and the way you handle it in the winery is quite different. So if you see something called Pinot Gris on the wine list or on, in the shop, give it a try. It's a load more interesting than Pinot Grigio. And because that's my one mission in life, I'm going to get Pinot Gris to pop in the US.
Right. No, Pinot Gris I love Pinot Gris. When I did a charity tasting, and Josephine is in our virtual audience right now, that was like, your Pinot Gris was a crowd pleaser. Everyone says, where can I buy this? Where can I buy this? I want to buy a case. I had to bother like Josephine. I'm like, Josephine, somebody wants to know where they can get a case of this wine. Like, I don't know what to tell them.
For me, it's that wine sort of, a comfort wine, it's just like a Friday night wine. When you've had a hell of a week and you go home into your Ugg boots, track pants, order takeouts and a bottle of Pinot Gris. That is my Friday night made.
Yeah. What is your favorite takeout and wine combination?
I'm big on Asian. So because part of Asia Pacific, you can go down one street and eat one part of China and then another street, but a different part of China. And so I'm big on Asian. I particularly like the Vietnamese, Cambodian type flavors that way, because they don't knock you over, but they've just got lovely nuances, and the wine sits really beautifully with that. We're not able to get takeouts on our down. And man, I've got to tell you, if we come out of this, my finger's going to sit on Uber Eats. Every night for a whole week. I am so cooking.
I have to say, like, I'm recognizing I'm very fortunate that I live in like a more densely populated area. So I have the Uber Eats, I have the DoorDash and the Grubhub, and I feel really bad for you, Erica. I'm so sorry that you can't get it delivered.
No, it's not only me, it's all of New Zealand's lockdown is quite austere.
Yeah, it really is.
So you can basically go to the grocery, the chemist, and to the doctor.
Yeah.
And so going to the grocery becomes an outing. And how sad-assed is that?
Exactly. And how is your little dog taking all of this?
My little dog, because of all these different businesses coming into different, we call it a bubble. Kim, my husband's now, had to self-isolate at a different place. So I gave him the little dog because he'd be too lonely. I mean, but she loves it. She loves having people around all the time. And, they sense when something's wrong, because I've got my nephew. Yeah, they should do. I've got my nephew here. He's in New Zealand. He's from South Africa, and he's got a young family in South Africa. And he was really quite upset when they cancelled flights on him and cancelled flights. And she just knew. She totally abandoned me and adopted him. But it's got a purpose, because he's sad, and they know.
Wait, so your dog like latched on
to someone else because he was sad? Yeah, I know. Amazing, huh?
These dogs. Let me tell you, these dogs. I feel like my dog has become more clingy to me since like this all happened, and I'm spending more time at home than ever. And even when, like, because I'm still working, I work as a nurse, even when I have to drop him off at my mother's for her to watch him, he's still like at the door, pawing at the door, like wanting just me. And I'm just like, what is this? Like, other people take care of you.
Yeah, but you see, I think they sense a degree of tension.
Right.
Because your job must be stressful for you to go to the hospital in these conditions.
It's a little stressful, but you know what? I have this. I have my wine. I have Loveblock wines to keep me sane. I am in a good place.
Thank you so much. I've taken this time to explore other people's wine, and I've taken time to explore wine from regions that I've never heard of. I'm getting into Georgian wines right now.
Ooh, tell me some of the Georgian wines that you've tried.
I cannot tell you, Pheasant Tears was probably my favorite.
Yes, I love
Yes.
Pheasant Tears.
Yeah.
They're really
Oh,
good.
but the exciting thing that I did want to tell you about our winemaking is that
Sorry.
this year I bought 2 amphora. Oops, I'm wobbling a bit. I bought 2 amphora. So those are those clay pots.
Yes.
So they're big clay pots. So we're making wine in clay pots and in a big, massive cement egg. This thing's about 8 foot tall. And because it's this shape, the wine continuously moves. So it's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in your whole life. So if you peek into this thing, you see the wine moving and moving around. And it has to do with the pressure that the fluid exerts on this curved wall, and then it just pushes it off. So hopefully we'll bring something exciting out this year, or it'll add another character to the wine, you know.
Right. Do you have any reserve wine at all? Not.
You know, we haven't got it yet,
Right.
purely because we haven't been able to stay ahead. Because we're estate, we can only make so much.
Right.
And but I really would like to try a true orange wine where the wine sits on skin and on lees. So this year it's the amphora, and then next year my young son is coming into. Hopefully, we'll make this. He really is into natural wine, so hopefully he'll do that. But yeah, no, we've probably got to do the reserve thing.
Definitely. That's pretty cool. I think that's awesome that you got your. Where did you get your amphoras from? Are they like locally made, or did you get them imported?
The cement egg is locally made, but the amphora come from, I believe they come from France or Spain.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. Wow.
Yeah, so it's really exciting.
That is really exciting. What else can we talk about? Okay, we talked about our Sauvignon Blanc. We talked about our Pinot Noir. We talked briefly on the Pinot Gris. Where is the Pinot Gris grown?
In Marlborough, on the estate. So it's part of the organic Loveblock farm.
Okay.
So it's about a 3 hectare. So in other words, 3 hectares, probably about 8 acres, little vineyard. And all of that, all of that is hand tended. But you know, there's the whole thing. I think for me, it's more philosophy than just making wine. And I think here of my dear friend Melissa Italiano from Margaret River in Australia. And so we worked together in wine many years ago. And now she's making natural perfume. And there's such synergy between natural perfume and organic natural wine, because the volatiles, the lovely flavors. I mean, the flavor, the aroma components are very volatile. So she's just come out about a year ago with natural perfume. And I see the
interesting.
Yeah. So you know, when you walk through duty free, when we can fly again one day.
One day.
Yeah. It's really a chemical assault on your olfactory senses, isn't it? Because it all smells the same.
Eventually, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. So it's a bit like Sauvignon Blanc. It's too much, isn't it? So with the natural, you've got to bind those volatile aromatics, and that makes it so difficult. And it's got the same perfume character as this Loveblock Sauvignon Blanc has in terms of mouthfeel. If you think about, you know, lovely jojoba oil, and it's soft. That's the main thing. And it's got a lot of philosophical things behind it. So I think it's at Mecca Cosmetics. It's called Meliss Natural Perfume. So if you do come across it, give it a dab and give it a try.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Meliss Organics. Have you ever heard of? It's called Pacifica, and Pacifica is like another natural perfume brand. No, maybe it's like a U.S. thing.
No.
Yeah, but I will look for it for sure. Flying on the treadmill for now. Okay, we have questions. Sorry. Let's go through the questions. Okay, Ralphie wants to know what the climate is like in central Otago.
So normally in the summers it's really nice and warm. So we're talking probably get about a week or two of over 90s. but it's super dry. So it's almost semi-desert, you know. So, but the nights are always cool, and then because it's at elevation, so it's high above sea level, and then it cools down at night, and then in winter it snows. So you get those temperature extremes. So that's one of the reasons why you get this low crop and this real super intensity of flavor in some of the places. It's absolutely beautiful. If you want to look at that, the main town is Queenstown. And it's probably a little bit like Aspen was 20 years ago. It hasn't got the furs and all the rich things yet. It's full of internationals and young people, and it's the adventure capital of the world, of course, with bungee jumping and all those things, Lord of the Rings, and so yeah, it's really beautiful.
That's awesome. So it's like a little ski town?
Yeah, it's a ski town.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I love Aspen. Oh my gosh. I went there once in like the fall, so I could only imagine like how amazing it is.
Oh, well, I haven't been, yeah, I go and ski. I'm African, so, but it's super expensive in Aspen, isn't it? So
yeah,
New Zealand's still, I suppose, relatively super cheap.
Yeah, but the Vail, it's like you think Aspen is expensive. Supposedly Vail is like way more expensive than that. But that's like hashtag US problems. Okay, we have another question. Jeff Korecki wants to know, why are some New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs so intense? I feel like you kind of touched on that already. It's mostly because they use different preservative methods. Is that not correct?
Well, it's how you manage the canopy. It's,
right.
Well, firstly, it's the New Zealand climate. So it's cold climate. So it is going to be very intense. You know, the days here in summer max, it's probably about 25, which would be what, 70s?
Yeah.
And then it drops down to really cool, you know, say 40 or even less at night. You get that fluctuation between warm and cold. So that preserves, because it's cool climate, your flavors are always a bit, think Oregon, the difference between Oregon and say Central Valley. Okay. Oregon's cooler, so their flavors are a lot more intense. And then the way to get that intensity for the classic sort of style of Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, you can manipulate the canopy, sort of like, you know, make it a little bit more green and more zippy, and in the winery as well. So, for instance, with Sulphurs. So it's just philosophical, but mainly it's the place where it comes from. The flavors are big, whatever you do, you know. It's same with Riesling, same with everything else. So it's more a matter for us of containing it and making it a bit more elegant than in your face and big.
Yeah. Oh, I noticed on your website that you guys are growing other varieties that are not exported to the United States. I noticed Gewürztraminer, different Moscatos. Like, do you care to maybe mention some of those wines if you have a New Zealand audience present?
Well, so I think particularly Riesling and Gewürztraminer is so well suited to New Zealand. The aromatics are, you know, because it's so cool. Because if you look at Europe, it sort of falls in the same sort of Alsatian, on that latitude band. But Gewürztraminer, because we've got the acid, you can carry, say, 20 grams per liter of sugar, and it doesn't feel sweet, it feels dry. But you get all those incredibly sensuous and beautiful, luscious flavors of Pinot, of Gewürztraminer. I totally love it.
Yeah.
But it's acid that makes the difference. So if you don't have the acid, it'll be cloyingly and sweet.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And the same with Riesling. So Riesling, I think, is something that New Zealanders make particularly well. But geez, difficult to sell, man. So we sell a little bit here in New Zealand, but the rest we just blend away into Sauvignon Blanc or the Pinot Gris, just to give it something of. So the difference between, in New Zealand, we have to be 85% varietal. So if you want to call it Sauvignon Blanc, you have to have 85% Sauvignon Blanc, and then you've got 15% that you can blend in. In the US, it's 75%,
yes,
and 25%. So you have a little bit more room to play with. So we tend to put Gewürztraminer and Riesling, Riesel, but Chenin Blanc is something I'm going to plant again.
I
Yeah,
saw that. I saw the Shannon all the way to
yeah,
the bottom of the list. And I was like, I love Shannon.
yeah. Because it does so well with, you know, if you put it in oak or you stick it on leaves. So it's an interesting grape varietal. So I've got a little block that I'm going to do that on.
Yeah, I feel like that's an ode to your South African roots, growing that Shannon.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do it really well. They do it really well.
Definitely. Do you tell me about some of the Moscatos? Because I was looking at your lineup there. Like, how do you make your Moscatos? Like, what is your process?
Well, I'm very sad to announce that vineyard was always an experimental vineyard. So, but that had to be decommissioned because some things grew and some didn't. What grew in the vineyard was Chenin Blanc, Pinot Blanc, and Moscato.
Okay.
What didn't grow in that vineyard was Tempranillo, Arnaz, Marsanne, Roussanne. It's just too cold, you know. But we set that aside because we try, see what works and what doesn't work. So now we know what to plant. So we're definitely planting. I do want to also plant a little bit more Moscato because, my God, it is the most delicious grape that you've ever tasted in your life before.
I mean, it's just like fun, especially when it's like sparkling. It's just like a fun wine.
We made a dry sparkling wine, so Moscato Brut in the Champenois style, and it was really surprising because you got all these luscious flavors of Turkish delight and rose and guava and deliciousness in your front palate, and then boom, it just dropped down into dryness. So that was we'd like to do that again one day.
Definitely. All right. So Instagram stories, unfortunately, kind of like kicks people off after being on for an hour's time. So we're kind of getting close to that hour's time. So what do you want our viewers to know about Loveblock? Any exciting announcements that you want to make? Just the floor is yours, Erica.
I mean, for me, two things. That at the heart of everything we do is organic and really, really deep sustainability. That we're moving away from that big green style into a more elegant, complex style of wine that, as you see, gets some oak, gets some malo, get a lot of handpick, this, that, and look out for things like Loveblock Orange and Pinot Gris. So it's also, you know, moving away from it, from Sauvignon only. And then, of course, Pinot Noir is, in terms of style, it's not California. So, no, it's not California. It's lighter. It sits somewhere between California and Burgundy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. But unlike a like a Willamette, it's kind of in its own class, I feel like.
Yeah, I think Willamette's a bit more warm, but yeah, it's in its own class. It's one thing, acid.
Yeah,
acid.
Definitely.
Thank you also very much for your time and attention. I really enjoyed this, and I mean, that's one of my most favorite New York young women. I gathered a little flock on my last trip, didn't I, Amanda? And it sort of went, so we're making a little story of all the wonderful young women.
Definitely. Let me tell all of you, when Josephine, who's the rep from Charlotte, told me that Erica was in town, I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm clearing my calendar. Like, I need to go to dinner with her. I want to meet her. I want to talk about Loveblock because, Erica, you're like the founder and you're the forerunner of the Loveblock wine brand, and you do an amazing job, and you are so inspirational for so many women out there.
Well, you know, I think that it's a labor of love, this, and as I say, it's an opportunity to live my values. But I also want to say that I think that young women today are so brave. You know, I think of the Me Too thing. It's just really brave to put yourself out there like that, out with wine, so much in front. But for me, I'm a trained viticulturist, but you know, I get introduced by men as Kim Crawford's wife, and so it's a lot about making elbow room for ourselves, isn't it? And I think you
It
guys
really
are,
is.
you
It
guys
really
are,
is.
yeah, you guys are
Yeah,
really good at it.
definitely.
Mm. So thank you all
Definitely.
very
Like,
much.
I don't mind being somebody's wife, but at the same time, it's like you're your own person.